Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positivity Podcast on Anfield Index. My name is Matt McElroy, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. I'm joined by Lubo Murkoff and Paul Jenkins. How are you guys doing? Paul?
Doing very good. It's really funny. It seems that every time we do a podcast, it's a lovely sunny evening in Northern Ireland. I don't know what it is. It just seems to be that when we organise these, the weather just aligns with me being sunburnt. I have managed after about an hour sitting in the sun to have turned bright beetroot, which is just the joys of being Northern Irish. So yeah, I'm really good.
What is funny is, like, for me, the exact opposite happens every time. And today we are having record rainfall for a June 5th. Like, today's going to be the rainiest June 5th ever recorded in Seattle. So luckily, like, just right now, it's like we're between storms and it's actually like partly sunny. So that's a good omen for the start of the podcast. So Lubo, how are you doing?
Nice.
It is sunny here. I think we're having the Belfast, the Northern Ireland weather here. It is beautiful. It's actually quite hot outside. And I've had an early day today with my son had a swim clinic, and then I also have to get ready for a business trip that's coming up tomorrow. So kind of a busy day. Normally my Sundays are pretty relaxed, but today it has been quite busy. But the weather is nice. I'm feeling good, and I watched Wales against Ukraine. And that was actually a fun game. I didn't care who would win. And at least now we get to see Harry Wilson and Nico Williams in the World Cup, right? So we have something to root for. So it's all good.
And against the United States as well.
Are they in the same group?
I'm pretty sure that that Wales is in the same group now with the US, England, and Iran.
Oh my God. That is definitely the banter group. Are you kidding me? Iran, the US, Wales, and England. Oh, that's perfect. I hope it is true. Just the narratives have already started writing themselves.
Yeah, let me double. I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, no, the opening game will be for the US is against Wales on November 21st.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
Good. Me too. It'll be an interesting thing with the World Cup being in the wintertime this go around. So let's move to our opening question for today, which is actually not at all related to Liverpool, and it comes from Hugh, and he was asking us to discuss what is your least favorite food. Paul, do you want to go first on that one?
I absolutely hate grapefruit. I can't stand grapefruit. I have never liked the taste of grapefruit. It is just absolutely stinking. And anyone who likes grapefruit, I don't know, you're a weirdo. So yeah, not grapefruit. And like anecdote that I have, I was going out for lunch. I went out for lunch or just to grab lunch from a shop a couple of weeks ago. And they do a meal deal offer where you get a sandwich, a bag of crisps, and a drink for a £5 or £5.50, whatever it is. And I reached up to the shelf to what I thought was San Pellegrino lemon, which is a a fizzy lemon soda drink. I reached up for it, grabbed it down, ordered the sandwich, went back to the office, sat down, opened the tin, first sip, near spat the thing everywhere. It was the exact same color tin as the San Pellegrino lemon, but it was the San Pellegrino grapefruit, and I was absolutely disgusted for the rest of the day. So my least favorite fruit, grapefruit.
How about that? Grapefruit can be just fine as long as they're properly ripe, but if they're not ripe, they can be like way too bitter.
No. There's no circumstances under which a grapefruit is good.
We'll just have to disagree on that one. So, Lubo, what is your least favorite food? Or do you want to provide us some thoughts on grapefruits?
So I do like grapefruits. Actually, I buy grapefruits. I think I'm the only person in my family who really eats grapefruit. So it's actually great because then I buy them and I know they're just for me. So I don't quite understand, Paul, the dislike for grapefruits. In general, I like citrus fruit, across the board. And about the food that I don't really dislike any particular food, but over time I've become very sensitive to spicy food. So when I was young, I used to consume a lot of spicy food and I used to enjoy it. But recently I've just realized that it's really causes a lot of problems while I'm consuming it, and then the day after, and then sometimes even the day after. So it's been one of those things where I've just tried to avoid spicy foods, which is it kind of sucks because there's cuisines like Korean cuisine or Indian cuisine or there are other cuisines that they really are good when they're spicy, but I've had to avoid them. It's been too much. But an anecdote actually related to food is I don't know if you guys eat beets much. So having parents-in-law who are Russian, they make a lot of beet soup. But I also love beets, especially when you just like cook. Actually baked beets. You can actually bake them. Well, not bake them, but whatever it is, the proper term, the proper
Roasting.
Roasted beets. I love them, but one of the things and I have not had them in a long time, and I recently had them. I was like, oh my god, roasted beets! So I had tons of them, and then one thing you need to remember is when you have a lot of roasted beets, next morning, don't be surprised because I literally. And I know this is probably way more information than anyone wants to hear. But I seriously thought that like I was bleeding out. I was like, "Oh my god, what is wrong with me? I need to see a doctor." I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ, I'm dying!" It was first thing in the morning. It was quite the experience. I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's all the beats I had yesterday." So that was my anecdote. What about you, Matt?
So the least favorite food for me is cucumbers. There are no circumstances when you should ever eat a cucumber, ever.
Yes,
it just makes everything taste like cucumber, and it's awful.
I agree.
And I know a lot of people have always reacted very strongly when I tell them how terrible cucumbers are, and it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. They're just awful, and they make everything taste like cucumber and renders whatever whatever they touched as inedible. And in doing some research, there's actually some sort of compound in the cucumbers that a small percentage of people just react very negatively to. And so and it's potentially related to genetics. So if you won that lottery in your genetics, you just don't like cucumbers.
Okay, that's me.
That's interesting. So I grew up on a farm, and we used to have a lot of cucumbers and tomatoes in the yard that my mom and my grandparents used to grow. And when I was little in the summer, literally whenever I was hungry, I would just go and grab a cucumber and grab a tomato and a pepper, whatever it is, and I would not even go inside the house to have lunch. I would just eat vegetables the whole day. So to me, I didn't even wash them. I would just pick them up and I just wipe them and just eat the cucumbers, the tomatoes, the peppers, the whatever I could get. So I'm luckily not one of the people who reacts negatively to cucumber because I do enjoy it quite a bit.
I don't know how you could just eat raw vegetables like that. They always end up being too bitter or tasting really bad to me.
Oh no, I could eat raw vegetables all day.
Tomatoes, peppers, all those kind of things. Yes, sweet corn. Love sweet corn. But but cucumber, no, thank you, not at all. And the weird thing about cucumber is, right? See, when you say to someone, "I don't like cucumber," they'll always go, "Cucumber has no taste. How do you not like cucumber?" And it's
Right,
no, I just don't like
cucumber. It has a taste to me.
It does have a taste. It's a really distinct taste, and I hate it.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
And anything that a cucumber touches becomes a cucumber.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if this is true for you, Paul, but like, if you pickle the cucumber and you now have pickles, like I find
Mhm.
those to be just fine. It's like something that like once
Like, I
you've
could eat I could eat, I can eat
done that
pickles.
sort of like mild fermentation, I don't know, just something about the raw cucumber, not great.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, thank
So
you.
moving on from vegetables, we'll talk about Liverpool a little bit and look back at the end of the season. So Liverpool beat Wolves on the final day in the league, but then ended up falling short of winning it all as City came back to defeat Aston Villa. And then last weekend in the Champions League final, Liverpool fell 1-0 to Real Madrid under controversial circumstances. So I'd like to start here with you, Lubo, and you were fortunate enough to go to the game on the final day at Anfield. So I was wondering if you could start us off by telling us about your experience.
It was amazing, except for the result at the Etihad. And honestly, going into the game, I was so convinced that somehow Aston Villa was going to pull off a result, and they almost did. And it was at the grounds actually. So I was there with Steve. I was Steve Pizza. I was sitting next to him, and obviously I met tons of people from Discord, specifically Gags and Harinda and Cam, and then a bunch of others. Homdol was also there. I just, it was a great experience. Just the trip to Liverpool was amazing. The before the game was amazing. The game itself was so nerve-wracking because of just how it all panned out, and the fact that Wolves scored the goal after 3 minutes. And then Sadio equalized, and then but then when and then we heard. I remember when I was 1-1 at the time when Aston Villa scored the first goal. I think I'll always have this image in my mind. Trent had the ball, and he was about to pass, or he was trying to dribble upfield, and Anfield just burst with such a roar that literally everybody stopped. Trent stopped, all the players stopped, looked around to figure out what was going on. And then obviously the second, and I was actually fine that with at 1-1, I was convinced that we were going to score again until the 70th minute or so when Phil Coutinho scored that second goal. And then I started having this just paranoia, this fear that Aston Villa will actually win, but Liverpool will draw 1-1, and they would miss the title on goal difference. And I swear, when Mo scored, I believe there was hugging and possibly kissing with random people. We're the upper Anfield Road stand where Steve and I are. I don't remember much of that, and in fact, I think when Robbo's goal went in, we were still high, and I didn't even realize until right around the time that Robbo scored that actually Man City had gone ahead 3-2. So in my mind, actually, when Mo scored, I still believe that Aston Villa were leading at the Etihad. So to find out that it was actually 3-2 and that realistically we were never in the lead, just because of how the goals were scored, was so disappointing. And it was deflating, but at the same time, staying there and seeing all the players come on the pitch and just get greeted and congratulated by the crowd, and then after that we went to Boss Night with Jamie Webster, and that was a great show. And honestly, I just felt at peace that day, and I also would believe that then we would win in Paris, and we didn't. And so it's been kind of a down end, but at the same time, very proud of the team, very proud of the players, of the season. We just got footballed in the end. in Paris. That's what happened.
Right. It sounds like you had a good time in Liverpool, at least, despite things not going like absolutely perfect. Like watching the game at home was like a very nerve-wracking experience. It was like, Wolves score, Liverpool score, Aston Villa scores, and then from that point, it's just like Liverpool need to score again, like to like put the pressure on. And like the longer it went without Liverpool scoring, it just like more and more of the nerves built. And then, Phil gets subbed off and the rest happens. Paul, did you have experiences you want to share about the final day, and then maybe talk to us a little bit about your thoughts for the season as a whole?
Yeah, like the final day was one of those ones. Was just kind of filled with excitement and anticipation and hope more than expectation, shall we say, about Aston Villa being able to do something. And even when Villa were 1-0 up, it was kind of like they're going to need to score again for there to be any chance. And I was kind of, when we went behind, I wasn't in any kind of real panic about it, because while it's not an ideal scenario, you effectively knew that we were going to come back and win this game. I was a bit like you, Lubo, where it was kind of like you hear Villa have went 2-0 up, and it's like the panic sets in at 1-1. You're hitting 70 minutes, 72 minutes. You're kind of going, right, we actually need to score here, because the worst thing that can happen is that Villa do us a favour and we turn around and mess it up with a 1-0 draw. Even though I was so confident that we were going to win anyway, still to be having that kind of idea that, oh flip, if we don't actually score now. And I remember saying that, like, I was watching it with a family, but effectively my eldest boy Eli and my wife Michelle. They were the two who were most interested in it, so they were watching. Along beside me, and Michelle was like, like, Villa are 2-0 up. We need to win this. We need to win this. And Eli was like, we're going to win. We're going to win. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to win. Secretly inside, going, are we going to win? And
Like
and I was kind of like,
the other thing is like when City have stuff like go against them, sometimes they just collapse, and that's what happened to them in the semifinal of the Champions League. So it's like
yes,
Liverpool score, like the psychology then becomes really real for them, and maybe they just just stop or give up, or like, because once things started going against them in the Champions League, they did nothing in the final half an hour of the game. And so it's like that was also like looming in my mind, at least.
definitely. I kind of thought, had we have went ahead in that game and Villa had been 2-0 up, what would City have done? Would they have melted, as you say? Would they have collapsed? Would they have come back? But I think at 1-1, players say, oh, we don't know what was happening in the other game, and I kind of go, that's a lot of rubbish, because you even see Matip, whenever Mo scores, Matip shouting in the crowd, what's the score? What's the score? Is it still 2-0 or is it still 2-1 or whatever? And then someone's telling us 3-2, and you just see their faces just go, oh no. So I probably think that Man City also knew that we were still drawn. So whenever they get their first goal, it's like Liverpool are still 1-1. We can do something here, and it just nearly gave them the impetus back. And you're just going. And I remember sitting there, and Michelle, she had an app up on her phone, and because I didn't want to know the City score, I wasn't checking messages from people. I wasn't sitting attached to my phone, kind of checking what was happening. And Michelle just goes, "City's got one back." And then she goes, "Oh no!" And I went, "What is it, 2-2?" She went, "Yeah." And then literally a minute later, she goes, "It's over." And I was like, "They've not scored a third, have they?" And then Sky were doing the end game stuff, so then you see the goals going in, and it was just the most deflating kind of thing. You're like, "Ah, man, we've come so close." And it was there in the palm of our hands. But like, as I said in the last podcast, I was over at Anfield the last time we came this close, and the atmosphere, Lobo, is just different level. As you say, there might be hugging, there might be kissing, there might be stuff that will have happened that you'll never utter to another human being, because that just stays between you and Anfield and the people that were involved with you. But it's a completely different experience, and even just to have that hope, that excitement, that joy, and be in that atmosphere, it is phenomenal. And I look back in the season and go, that was such a good season. It was, so many people wrote us off at the start of the season saying that we weren't going to get anywhere near, a title challenge. People were even questioning would we get top four. And I'm not even saying like external people. I think fans of the club were even kind of going, oh, I don't know if we're going to get top four because Chelsea are going to be strong, because, United finished second last season and City are going to be there and Arsenal are going to mount a challenge and Spurs are going to be there. And you kind of like, at this point, sitting here today, I'm kind of going, like, that was never on the cards. And I remember having discussions and debates and arguments with people, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, that, we have been positive the whole way through, knowing that our team is is one of the best in the world. But we just got beat, pipped at the
Yep.
post by a
Yep.
team that is just phenomenal, and you have to throw your hands up and go, City are really good. They are a really, really good team. Yeah, they bottled it probably in the Champions League when they had that opportunity, and Real Madrid were on the ropes. And the domestic cups, they just didn't seem as up for them as what we did. I'm really pleased that we did that this season. If we're looking back at highlights of this season, I'm really glad that we took that approach with the cups. Did it cost us in the league? I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's possibly, based on when you play the League Cup games and when you play the FA Cup, third and fourth rounds, you kind of look at it and go, well, at that point in time, we weren't sure whether there's going to be really a league challenge left to go for anyway. So the fact that we went and mounted a cup challenge and won the two domestic cups, I'm pretty positive that's a good outcome for our season. Unfortunately, that Champions League final, man, I think if you play that Champions League final, 98 times out of 100, we win that. Had Courtois he wouldn't be as good in any other time that you would replay that match. He wouldn't hit those levels. Fine margins. Mane's shot, Courtois getting half a hand to it. It bounces off the inside of the post. It comes back out. Other days, that's just nested in the back of the net. We go on and win 3-0 because Real Madrid then have to come out and play us. You look at that Champions League final, and no one can say that Real Madrid outplayed us. No one can say that Real Madrid bossed us in the midfield, or they had our defense under attack for sustained periods of that game. It was the other way around. We controlled it, we dominated, but it's a Carlo Ancelotti defensive masterclass with a one ball, with a one attack, and they managed to, fair play to them. They scored a good goal. They worked it well. Our defending probably just wasn't where it needed to be, but I look at the team and go, this team that we have, this season that we've had, is an incredibly good season. We could have been sitting here today talking about quadruple, and that wouldn't have been beyond the realms of possibility or beyond the realms of reason to be sitting here talking about that. Unfortunately, we're sitting here talking about two domestic cups and missing out on the league by a point and missing out on the Champions League by one goal. So it's been a really, really good league campaign.
Yeah. I mean, it was the most games that Liverpool could have played. I mean, as you said, every game mattered. The last game of the season, we were competing for a title. The second to last game, rather, the last game was a Champions League final. You had the two trophies. I don't think that the cup runs actually cost us. I mean, maybe a little bit, just the energy at the end that you want. It felt like in Madrid the second half a little bit when we're chasing a goal, you could sense maybe we just we were 90% rather than 100% just because we've run so many miles and we've put so many minutes on people's legs. But I completely agree with you. I mean, I think that if you think about it, after the Chelsea game, which is when I really the season really got started in the league, we in the last 18 games, I think it was 16 wins and 2 draws. And the one draw was at Man City. The other one was at home to Spurs. And I think that's probably the one that you look at and you kind of like, I wish we could have found a late winner in that one, because that would be the title then right there. But in the league, you almost did everything that you could. So I don't know where you can have regrets. And then where we dropped the points in the league, a lot of the points was that period when COVID happened. And it just was the bad luck is that we had to, so many of our players were missing due to COVID, we had to start. What is that? Morton and Milner and I don't know who else. Maybe it was Keita at Chelsea. So things
Virgil was
outside.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Virgil and Fabinho both had to quarantine, and so
it was
Thiago. It's like basically, it was completely disrupted to the schedule. Like I bet they had planned for a game every 3 days because that's what it was supposed to be. But then opponents had COVID, and the games had to be postponed. And then Liverpool had COVID, and it just like everything got disrupted, and that just threw things off just enough to make the results go the wrong direction.
And then it just at the
it,
whole then 14 points, even though technically we had 2 games in hand, it just ended up being just 1 point too big. And it happened. It was, but you have to be proud of this, especially again this after that Chelsea game, the run that the team had, and to play 63 games and to lose only 4. And then out of those 4 games, I looked Liverpool. I mean, depending on how much you buy into it or believe in it, but Liverpool won the XG in all 4 of them, and really 3 of them were 1-0 losses that Liverpool dominated and had the more shots, the more chances, the higher XG, and then they lost to basically just pretty much the only shot on target that the other team had. I mean, you talk about the goal that what was named Lookman scored at Leicester, the Lautaro scored Inter, and granted that game didn't matter, but then also the Vinicius. I mean, that was it. It's one of those things where maybe you get kind of footballed once or twice a season like that. I mean, Liverpool got footballed 3 times. You could say, okay, maybe the Villa game was not the Villa. The West Ham game was the one game where we're not as dominant. At the end, we made up a lot of the XG, kind of chasing the game after 3-1. But the 3 1-0 losses were just such terrible luck, where we had chances, and Mo missed the penalty. Against Inter, Mo hit the post twice. Against Real Madrid, as you said there, I mean. The ball could have gone in off the post, and it's a completely different game. And who was it? I think it was Mike Goodman who said that, according to Opta, Courtois had the biggest overperformance against post shot XG of any goalkeeper in the Champions League this year. So,
yes, I read that. That's right.
I mean, it's Liverpool. When you look at the post shot XG, they almost like it was close to 3. Right. So Liverpool were just taking the shots. They were putting the shots in good places. It's just Courtois had the game of his life. And I don't know, sometimes you just have to tip your hat. And then even the other irony is the way they scored their goal is, it was actually a mishit shot from Valverde that just happened to go straight at Vinicius. I mean, what can you do? It wasn't even a good shot. It was just like a crap shot that just ended up right at Vinicius. And what can you do, man? It's just
that one's like equally frustrating because like the ball goes past Benzema, who's offside and like is possibly interfering with the play, but that doesn't go to VAR or doesn't get like looked at too closely at VAR, and it's probably because they had the disallowed goal where he was actually offside earlier, or at least that's my like conspiracy theory. And so like that's like equally frustrating that like you could easily see that like on a different day have VAR go against Real Madrid right there.
Oh yeah. I mean, and and the thing is, I watched the game in Boston. So this is the other kicker. So my son and I were in Boston for the weekend, and we were visiting colleges, and we were also going to the Boston Calling, the music festival. And I had strategically made it so for the game we would be by the Phoenix Landing, which is the Liverpool bar in Cambridge. And we got there, and it was packed inside. There was an hour wait line to get inside. So we thought we'd watch it outside. They had set up a TV outside on the umbrellas. And so it was great. And literally, as the second half started, it started raining. And then when Real Madrid scored, it just started pouring. So we're standing there. We're basically standing in the rain, drenched. The rain is everywhere, in our drinks, in our food. everyone just cold and miserable and wet, and we get to watch Real Madrid score. It was such a pisser. But
It was just.
what can you do?
It's
What
just
can you do?
it was just frustrating in the end, wasn't it? It was just one of them ones where, and you knew that once Real scored, they weren't going to try and to make any more attacking plays, and ultimately it was going to be down to us to try and break them down. And they were like, you have to pay respects. They're a good team. They've got to the Champions League final. You don't get there by not being good. Yeah, they rode their luck without a doubt, and probably the enduring storyline from Real's season is they rode their luck. But at the end of the day, they beat PSG on their way there. They beat City on their way there. They've beaten us in the final.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you're still a decent team. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah, so
It's
like
not a.
the story of the Champions League was Real Madrid get outplayed and win. And
Yeah.
that happened in every single one of their ties, happened in the final, and they had the luck and just
Yeah.
rode it to the trophy, and it was at Liverpool's expense, and like that's the part that's really frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and I think it's one of those things where, unlike the other two, I felt that if we had met Real Madrid earlier in the tournament and we had to play them over 2 legs home and away, I would feel confident that actually we
Yes.
could advance. I mean, it's the what ifs, right? But and we had chances. Diogo had chances. Mo had chances. I thought Mo actually this was one of his best games in the second half of the season. I thought that actually when Bobby came on, and you wonder, did the Klopp wait too long to bring Bobby in? I thought Diogo coming in made a difference. I almost would have made a double sub right at the 60th minute when Diogo came in. It's like, listen, just bring Bobby in as well, because all of a sudden, that really made the last 10, 15 minutes much more intense. We had chances. And at that point, whether you lose 1-0 or you lose 2-0, it didn't really matter. We needed the goal. So, you wonder if Klopp had reacted quicker and brought in both Bobby and Diogo, would they have made a difference? But it's one of those what ifs. But listen, you got to be, and honestly, I think to me, the biggest positive coming out is the Liverpool had the parade, and not that they had the parade, but 500,000 people went to the parade, I think that to me, the parade, and this is me being super positive and optimistic. To me, it's almost our first win in the league already. It was that parade, because all those players who were maybe down and who were questioning after having lost in the league and by 1 point and lost the Champions League final by 1 goal, if they were wondering, I mean, if they had doubts about how the fans feel about this season, how the fans feel about them, I think they saw in the parade. They saw in the parade how the entire city is behind them, and the fans are behind the team, and I feel that is going to be such a motivation again next year for them to go again, to give it another go, and really now go and win the league again, win the Champions League again. That team is going to be so super motivated.
Well, any final thoughts on this season before we start looking ahead?
Yeah, my enduring thought is that it's ironic. We're the positivity podcast. I think as a fan base, everyone should be really positive about the season that has passed and also what that means for the season coming. Like I think it's been a season of fine margins, and we've been on the right side of them for most of the season. Even the 2 cup finals and all the rest of it. But and the runs to the cup finals, we've had some great memories and some great moments, some great contributions from players, Taki getting goals and chipping in. So, I definitely think that the season has been such an overall really, really positive season. And it's just one of them ones where it's really weird to come away nearly feeling a wee bit downbeat about it, because we have done so well. And, at any other point in time, you would say this has been a brilliant season. But it just feels like we could have done and we could have had a wee bit more than what we ended up with. But it's just been it's been a really it's been a really good journey. And that sounds as cliched as you can get by talking about, oh, you have to enjoy the journey and on your way through. But it's true, like, how much excitement
True.
has this team and has this season brought to us? Like, we've been absolutely buzzing, and the fact that we did come from so many points behind at Christmas to run City the whole way, it's just like, yeah, I can't be downbeat. I can't be negative about it. I can't be one of these people that goes, oh, we should have won it. Oh, we should have won this. We should have won that. We didn't do well enough. If we analyse this game a wee bit more, we'll see where the mistake was. It's like, it's football. Sometimes you play a team off the park and you lose 1-0. It's just what happens. It's why we love the sport. It's why we love the game. But at sometimes, and I said this before, it's a cruel lover. There's just times when it just really, you're just like, it stabs you in the heart. You're like, no. I nearly wish that we weren't anywhere close to being in the running, because then you wouldn't get your hopes built up so much.
And
And
I'll
like,
just add. I'll just
yeah, go
add. I
ahead.
mean, I know we're saying just 2 domestic cups, right? Or a lot of rival fans say, well, you only got 2 domestic cups, but actually, there are 2 cups that the team haven't won in a really long time. It'd be
Yeah.
different if we had just won the FA Cup like Chelsea, like the last few times, or the League Cup like Man City, and like, yeah, another League Cup. But it's been 10 years since the last League Cup under Kenny, and
Yes.
16 years since the last FA Cup, and
Yes.
I think it's great to have those. It's great to have those.
Mhm.
Those are trophies on the Champions Wall, at Anfield, and it's good to have those. And we just hopefully next year we can actually make another run at the cups, and then hopefully we get a little bit luckier in the league and the Champions League, and we can have some of those big trophies as well. But the fact that
Yeah.
you have those, and now Klopp can say, and these players can say, we've won every possible competition that we've entered. The league, the League Cup, the FA Cup, the Champions League, the Club World Cup, the Super Cup. I mean, they've won except for the European Cup, and I hope that or the Europa League Cup rather,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
one
Europa League.
the Europa League, which clubs in. So I'm okay with not winning that one for a while, as long as we
Yeah,
compete
exactly.
for the Champions League. But so from that perspective, I do think it's been nice additions. Those 2 cups have been nice additions to what this team has won in the last few years, and it just means that at this point of time, you just keep going again. Just whatever trophy you can get, you just go for it.
And if fans do ask or do say something like, well, you only won 2 domestic cups this season, just feel free to ask them like how many domestic cups their team won this season. So um, I think for me, it's this season is given Klopp sort of a proof of concept. Like, you can chase all 4 trophies and win all of them. You just need things to
Mhm.
go your way a little bit more. And so that's something that they can, include in their planning and have in their head going forward, that, it is possible. We can do this. Let's go find a way. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to move to looking forward or looking ahead. So we are now in the 5-week off season, and it's full on transfer time. So this should be an interesting summer on that front. So far, Liverpool have confirmed the departures of Divock Origi and Loris Karius. So there have also been some news reports that are indicating that Shea Ojo and Ben Woodburn will be leaving as free agents. Additionally, the club has confirmed and announced the signing of Fabio Carvalho from Fulham. So I wanted to start here with asking if you have any parting words for the guys who are leaving. Lubo, do you want to get us started on that one?
So I mean, I think with I completely missed the announcement on Karius, and it makes sense because he's a free agent. But obviously, Divi is the big one, right? I mean, obviously until maybe Sadio leaves, if it does happen. But Divock Origi, he, aside from Henderson, he was actually the longest serving player
Mhm.
at the team, right? I mean, he joined in 2014 officially, even though he went back on loan. So he's one of the few players who actually predates Klopp at the club, and he's been, he's not been a bed of roses for him to use the words from Queen, right? That Queen song, but he's still managed to make some amazing contributions over the years, and some of the most memorable games have his his footprint, right? I mean, just think about some of the big games. That 4-3 against Dortmund, that 5-2 win in the derby against Everton, and obviously the 4-0 against Barcelona, the 1-0 against Everton, the Champions League coming in when we're protecting a 1-0 lead, and for 20 minutes looking like he couldn't even make a pass, and then he scores that second goal. I mean, and even this year, that goal at Wolves and a couple of the goals that he scored in the league in the cup competitions, he's just honestly, the ratio of impact to minutes played might be bigger than almost any player we've watched in the last 10 years. And so I know that he's a legend, and I think that normally you would want a much bigger body of work to call someone a legend, but I think we just need to make an exception for Davy, especially because he's also such a nice guy, and he really gets the club, and in the way he speaks about Liverpool and what he's done for the community. It's such a wonderful guy, and it was time for him to go, and I'm just glad that he was here for another season so he can contribute to a couple of those cups. He can have that now, those medals in his cabinet, and I'm gonna be rooting for him. I'm gonna be watching to see how he does in Italy. I hope he does really well. And then the rest of them, I mean, it's expected. It's funny, like Woodburn and Ojo. Actually, my story is, I think it was back in 2013. I went to a tournament here in Newark, New Jersey, and the Liverpool, I think it was under 16 or under 17, were here in that tournament. And that team had Woodburn, had Ojo, had Harry Wilson, had Sergi Canos, had a few others that I got to see for the first time as like 13, 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds, whatever they were at the time. And Ojo just looked like someone who would just be a world-class world beater. He just looked like the best player on the tournament, really. And it's just so unfortunate to see that he just never panned out. And in fact, if you look at that team, it's Harry Wilson and maybe Sergi Canos who are the ones that ended up having a kind of a successful career. And Woodburn is just, I don't know, somewhere in Scotland in the wilderness. So, I mean, I wish them the best. Both of them, both Ojo and Woodburn, and hopefully they can find their places and they can have careers. It's a shame it didn't work out at Liverpool, but that's unfortunately the reality with young players. Is some of them will just break your heart, and I think those are the two. But yeah, it's not surprising. I think everyone who's leaving, it's what you'd expect. And Fabio, I mean, I know maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the arrivals, and I'd like to get your thoughts, Paul and Matt, on some of the departures, impossible departures.
Yeah, so just Paul, go ahead with any parting words for the guys we know who are leaving.
Like, I was just going to say that the Divock Origi was, one of the great characters to have had around Liverpool, and I'm just so, in a way, sad because his career at Liverpool could and should have been a whole lot better, apart from just one really shock tackle in a Merseyside derby that was defined as a career altering tackle. And I just think when he came back from that injury, the team has slightly progressed and moved in a different direction that he could never find himself fitting back in. But Klopp has throughout his tenure has always been incredibly positive and incredibly complimentary to Divock and how he's talked about him, and you just kind of feel that had that injury not have happened, had that it was an ankle break or something, wasn't, had that not have happened back then, maybe the direction that the team would have taken would have been slightly different and would have been more geared and set up around Divock, and he could have had a completely different direction at Liverpool. But that's not to say that he hasn't had an incredible 6, 7, 8 years with us, because he has been brilliant. And as you rightly highlight, Lubo, like some of our greatest memories and our greatest wins and our greatest moments that we can look back over the Klopp tenure, like Divok's at the middle of them. So for someone who at times has felt like a player who's very much on the fringes, when called upon, he has been absolutely superb and scored goals and fitted into the team. And there's so many funny wee anecdotes about things that happened like that. You remember that game against Everton, the derby, where Van Dijk had the terrible shot that Pickford flapped at, that Divock heads in, and he runs into the back of the net and he grabs the ball as if he's going to run back to midfield, run back to take the centre. And I think it was Milner who came out afterwards and said, yeah, he actually thought that Everton were winning that game 1-0. And you're just kind of going like, and sometimes you just kind of go, where was his head at? He was just so relaxed and just kind of so like not focused at times on what he was doing. But then, he was just so central and key to a lot of our big moments, the Barcelona game, the Dortmund game, was there not a thing at a time that Klopp had actually tried to take him to Dortmund, but we had pipped him to the post and got that deal done for him. So, I think Klopp has, been an admirer. So yeah, it's like sad to see him go, but he's a player. He's an ex-player who you will be looking out for. If, as the rumors are true, that he's going to AC Milan, he'll be a player that, or maybe that's been confirmed. I can't remember, but he'll be a player who
I don't
you'll
think it's
look
been
for.
fully announced, but yeah, that's the expectation.
That's the field. He'll be a player. He'll be an ex-player you'll actually look for in a positive light to see how he's getting on and see how he's going. Karius is one of those players who you're like, he came in and everyone thought, right, this is us going to be sorted. It's a young German goalkeeper. We've got the next Oliver Kahn, or we've got the next Neuer. This is, Klopp's done an incredible piece of business here to bring this guy in. And you just know that he never recovered after that Champions League final. And it's just unfortunate that his career has just taken the trajectory that it has, because it doesn't seem as if, it's going to go too many places. I just hope that he does get a club. By the looks of it, though, if he doesn't manage to get a club, he's a career as an Instagram modeler. Because he just seems to be on there all the time, and all his pictures are just like, model worthy. So he's got something lined up for his next move. But unfortunately, that's just the nature of football. You can make one mistake that you just can never recover from, and it never works out for you. And it's just unfortunate. And we all know that with youth guys, we've seen it time and time again. They promise so much, and we really hope that they're going to succeed. I think like Ben Woodburn will leave with the record of being the youngest goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, yeah, that's brilliant. That's it's something that he'll have on his CV for a long time. It's just unfortunate that kind of seems to be the level where he's peaked at, and like he didn't make it in Scotland. He's coming back to the club. I think they had an option to try and negotiate something for him, and they chose not to. So, his next move will probably be further down the leagues. And I just hope that he gets something. And Ojo as well. So yeah, like players, sometimes we all know it just doesn't always work out at Liverpool, but it doesn't mean that they don't have a good career to follow that. So we wish them all the best, and thanks for the memories that they've given us.
I will miss Divock Origi, the man of the big moments. So, and I wish him the best going forward. But since we're probably going to run over time, let's try to do this next round of questions about the transfer window a little bit quicker. So let's start with just briefly, what do you see as the top priority this summer for Liverpool? So, Paul, you want to get us started on that one?
Yeah, like my view on transfers is very much this: I will be excited when they happen, and until they happen, I'm not going to get my knickers in a twist about them, shall we say? If Mane leaves, I obviously think that forward is something that we need to look at. We've heard so much about midfields and Tchouaméni and different people. Yeah, if we get a midfielder in, that's brilliant. I'm excited about Carvalho. I think that's a great sign. I think that's one that's we've got ahead of the game in the same way with Harvey Elliott, got ahead of the game, got him signed, got deal sorted. So I'm really looking forward. And Harvey Elliott's been, has spoke really highly of Carvalho coming in too. So I think it's our transfer window is going to be based on who departs and what we need to replace then for those people who are departing. The thing that we need to look at most, as it sits currently, probably midfield. If Manny leaves, I feel the focus will be trying to get a forward sorted that replaces him. But I'm not panicked one bit about it. And the reason I'm not panicked one bit about it is because the season that has just passed us. We played every match possible. We got to every final possible. We took the league to the last day of the season. If that squad doesn't change too much and we can refresh and strengthen in a position that maybe becomes vacated, then that's happy days. Otherwise, the majority of those boys are ready to go again and they're motivated by what has just happened in this season past. So yeah, transfers, I'll be excited when they happen, but if they don't happen, I'm okay with it.
I think we're all sort of in the similar boat with that, where it's like, not going to get too bought into any one player until they're part of the club. So, Lubo, what do you think the top priority would be, like, position-wise?
I mean, honestly, so attack and midfield are the two areas that everyone's been talking about. And so where I am is with you have Divock departing and that you have Fabio coming in, and Divock only played 600 minutes. You like to think that Fabio will get even more than that, assuming he's an attacker. So, okay. And then I know Sadio is likely leaving, but you do have a Luis Diaz, and maybe Luis Diaz is not seen as a replacement or as a new player because he arrived in January, but realistically, in many ways, he was brought in as a replacement for one of the attackers. So if you went into the next season with assuming that Bobby is fully fit, right? That's a question mark because he did have injuries, and also assuming that you can sign Mo to a long-term deal, and you have Diogo and Luis as sort of the younger players. Then you have Taki, who I still think is a perfectly good backup attacker. You have Fabio, you have maybe Kate Gordon. There's possibly 6 options, right? There are 6-7 options in attack. So do you desperately need an attacker for this summer to come in? Maybe, maybe not. I do think because of Bobby's age and because ultimately Mo will not be able to play as many minutes a season, you probably want to bring in another high upside attacker, younger attacker. But whether it's this summer or next summer, I'm on the fence. I can go either way. Honestly, I'm the same way about midfield, because if you think about it, really the only midfielder who's strongly linked to be leaving is Ox, right? And even assuming that Milner stays, and I've seen mixed messages. Some say Milner will stay, Milner will not. But assuming that Milner stays, then you still have 7 midfielders, and that includes Curtis and Harvey, and a lot of the question marks are around, well, how much can you expect from Harvey? How much can you expect from Curtis? Will they give you meaningful minutes? I'm more optimistic. I'm more positive on both of them next year, and I feel that they could give you enough to more than compensate for the minutes that you've lost. If Ox leaves, or even the minutes that you've lost if Milner leaves. But I do think that ultimately it's a good idea to look to bring in another young midfielder, ideally someone who is in the 22, 23-year-old range. And not because I think it's desperately needed for next year. I know there a lot of people will disagree, but because you have Hendo and you have Thiago that are in their early 30s, and in a year or two, they'll probably be running out of legs, and ideally you want to have then that next another younger player, ideally player who could be more of a 6, more of a DM, that more physical type who can do the stuff that Fabinho does. They're already in the team and already available to play significant minutes, and the best way to do it is honestly just bring him a season earlier than you really need him. And so we'll see if Liverpool do that. So, but would that mean that I fully do I think that we need to bring in another midfielder who is going to play 3,000 minutes or whatever? I don't, and I don't even think that there's a midfielder right now who do that much. I know I have slightly different opinions about Tchouaméni or some of the others. I think that going into next season, we're still going to have a super strong core with the first four, and then Curtis and Harvey. And it really comes down to if Milner also leaves, so you've lost Ox and Milner, then I do think you need to bring someone in. If Milner stays, maybe you could make it for another year. Just my short answer of a long rambling rant is that I think eventually we will need to bring in another attacker and another midfielder who could be starters for us in the future. But does it have to be this summer? Maybe, but it could also be next summer. Could also be in January. So I don't feel the same pressure, the same urgency maybe that some other fans feel about transfer. I just feel there's a plan. There are names that are identified, and the club is working methodically. And when the right player becomes available at the right time for the right price, he'll come in.
And I think that's ultimately that is how we have done transfers under Klopp anyway. So I don't see any reason to panic. The club has always had a plan and a guideline in place as to how they want to do this stuff. Yes, they have to react to some external factors such as Sadio wanting to leave, or a player, a really good transfer offer coming in for a player, or whatever. But ultimately, they will constantly be checking on players who could fit a certain position and be able to be like, if Mo doesn't renew his contract, which I'm really hopeful that he will, I'm pretty certain that we will have a contingency plan that will be set up in place that we will be able to bring someone through who will take that place. So transfers aren't something that we need to get too panicky about.
And I believe that Luis Diaz was brought in January. I mean, I know he was planned for the summer, but I believe, or at least I assume, that was because they knew already that Sadio would be leaving, right? So that was, and then with Mo, if it turns out that, I mean, what Mo said is really interesting, that he's for sure playing next year, and whether that's what he wants or whether the club have told him that he's not going anywhere this summer, regardless of whether he signs a new deal or not. At least that gives the team the opportunity to bring in someone this summer. If they know that Mo would not become resigning, or that Bobby would be leaving, they know the plans for these players and they will react accordingly. So if a new attacker comes in this summer, it could be that attacker comes in not necessarily with an eye for this coming season, but for the season after that, whether it's a Bobby replacement or as a Mo replacement, because eventually those attackers, just like with Sadio now, eventually they will leave. Hopefully with Mo, it's a bit longer. I love Bobby, so I hope he stays longer. But the club will have a plan, and when they think is right, they will bring in new players.
And none of us really know what the intention is for Carvalho either. Because when we look at how he's played in the championship, everyone kind of goes, left-sided, or he's coming in as a number 10, he's doing all this. But the club have communicated that they view him as a forward, so he's not coming in to play right-sided 8 in the midfield, from what we can tell. So we'll have to see also how he fits into the forward line, and I think that could end up being an incredible signing for us. So we just don't know. The club do their business, the club do their research far better than any of us can ever do our research. They have the figures, and they have the eye test that they look for, and they have everything that they know. So if they've brought him in and communicate to the fans that he is a forward, then maybe they've addressed that scenario. They know that Mane's leaving. They know that Salah possibly won't renew, possibly will renew. So they've brought him in. They know that Bobby probably won't, may not get offered a new deal at the end of his contract. So is Carvalho coming in to learn under Bobby and play that kind of role? We don't know, but they know. And this next season is going to be quite exciting for how that happens.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? What are your thoughts?
Well, in terms of priority, in terms of for like position, I think for me, when I'm looking at things that like a like for like replacement for Fabinho would be where I would tend to prioritize. Just not like having to stick Henderson there just really disrupts the flow of the games. Just because he plays the position so differently than Fabinho does. And so having somebody who's younger in their like early 20s, who's learning under Fab, helping rest his legs, can play it in a similar way to how Fabinho does, I think that would just make it so you have a little bit better continuity when Fabinho's getting a rest, rather than when Henderson drops back there. It's going to be a completely different style. Everybody else has to then adjust how they're playing their game, and it just seems a little bit more disruptive, and then also potentially allows you a way to be like playing Fabinho and at times. At least some commentators believe that Fabinho and Henderson playing together like nullifies the good things that both of them do, and they play worse together than they do separately. And so if that's true, having somebody to like for Henderson to platoon with, and then Fabinho platoons with like Harvey or something like that, where they just sort of like play together, that might get you like the best out of all the players that you have. And so I think that, if I'm looking at it, maybe that's where I would, spend my money or spend my attention, provided like nobody's leaving, right? Now, if Sadio's leaving, then like you guys are saying, like an attacker would be sort of higher on the list, because then you're going to want to start doing that succession planning. Like Liverpool probably have at least two of who they're going to have going forward to be one of the three starters or like four core members in Diogo Jota and Luis Diaz. Fabio Carvalho, maybe he developed into that, but he's only 19 years old. So having a third guy identified going into their peak years or outs, that would be, I think, a priority if Sadio's leaving. And like that's all part of what I'm sure they're working on in terms of like how they're like planning that out as the players are coming in.
Yeah.
So
and and just
so to go in like go ahead, Lubo.
The last thing, I think a big unknown is how the club evaluates some of the younger players, right? So specifically Curtis and Harvey and Fabio, and even Cade, right? Because they've played very little. I mean, Cade is so young.
Yeah.
But specifically around Harvey, Curtis, and Fabio, how the club evaluates them, what the coaches would expect from them, and how much time the coaches would feel that they could be given or should be given could go a long way to determining what they do in the transfer market, right? And this is something that's very difficult for us to project from one, because they're young, but two, we've hardly seen them much. The coaches really would know the best, and so that's where I think that is going to determine to a large extent what the club emphasizes and where they end up bringing additional players is how they evaluate some of these younger players that they have that just really have been on the periphery or a little bit on the edge of the first 11, but not really contributed meaningfully, but they're on the edge, right? And so that will be really interesting to see.
The other thing, just quickly, is just the other thing quickly is like see having 5 subs next season in all competitions. It will give us more of an opportunity to bring those young players on for the last 20 minutes of a match and evaluate and see how they do. So you get 3-0 up in a match, you're now kind of able to go, well, we've got 5 subs, we can break Fab off and put someone else into that position. So I think that can also dictate some of the transfers that we do, because we might look more at younger players who we can bed into the system for the next 3 seasons, because we have 5 subs and we're able to rotate more during a match. Or you also have that option of they start and play for 60 minutes, and if they're not doing well, or if they're struggling, or if they can't keep up with the physicality of it, then you can still bring Fab on, or you can bring Thiago on, and you can bring Naby on, give them 30 minutes in their legs and keep that rotation going and keep that kind of rhythm going for players. So I think that also could come into consideration when we're looking at our transfers.
Yeah, the other thing is like with Curtis and Harvey, like they had such disrupted seasons from injury, and
Yeah.
so like Harvey had the one big injury that sort of like set him out for a long time, whereas like Curtis had a series of small injuries and then one non-football related injury that kept him out for several months. So if they are more healthy, they could get in a better rhythm and be more easily integrated. So it's not like,
Yes.
you now are out for 2 weeks because you pulled your quad, and then you're back for 2 weeks, and then you rolled your ankle, and then like that stuff like that keeps disrupting the rhythm for those players. If they're not getting those small knocks and they're part of the regular rotation, you might actually see their performances start to go up and their levels to more sort of rise on a consistent basis, rather than something that we see now where it's sort of it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. So as they get more into the rotation, they can be more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys want to do one more question, or do you want to call that the podcast?
I figure we can call this the podcast, and maybe we'll
Okay.
come back in a month, and by that time we may have more ideas about transfers that will have happened. Maybe right before the first game of the preseason against Man United. Maybe we come back again a month from now, see what has happened to the transfer chatter, see if anyone has come in, and maybe we could just then start looking a little bit more in depth at the next season.
Can I just say that it just even feels weird that 1 week after the Champions League, we're already talking about the preseason games against United.
Crazy, right?
It feels as
It
if
so
this
short.
season is just wow. It's one straight into the next. I mean, no way it is because the World Cup and all the rest of it, but it just feels like, are the players even going to get a chance to rest? Really?
Barely. They're off at internationals now for another week, and then they have 3 weeks off, and then it's the next season, and it's crazy short. So,
Mad.
any other final thoughts from either of you?
No, I'm good. I'm
Think of that as a no?
excited. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm just excited for what's happening. And I'm not in any way panicking about transfer stuff. So we should be good.
Many reasons to be positive about the summer. Many reasons to be positive about just this team. I think I'm actually just really happy that we have this podcast going, and we'll be able to check in periodically and see how the summer is going and how the new season is shaping up. But having been a bit in the dumps for a couple of weeks because of the last 2 games of the season, I'm back out of it, and I'm back full on, Lubo gif, if you will. I'm back on the horse. Back on the horse, baby.
Good. Ready to hit the season running with lots of happy thoughts and positivity, and leave that other negativity for everyone else. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Have a great summer, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.